Hey team, welcome back to week 1, bonus video 5. Why save in DNG RAW format? Hey, the pros do it. And if you know pros who don't do it, you need to tell the pros to do it. I bump into so many professional photographers still who are like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. Tell them, spread the news. Hey, in an earlier video, I showed you that when we import our images directly into our hard drive via the Bridge photo downloader, that there was a setting, convert to DNG. Why? Well, number one, to do it here, it's so easy. Just get it done. Images come off the computer or come off the camera card directly to the computer and you are done. They are in DNG format. There's no easier way to do it than this. But what I want to do now is tell you why. So I'm going to sneak out to my desktop and show you why DNG. All right? Why DNG format? It's RAW. Now there's several RAWs. Okay, I mean, what am I talking about? There are two things. There's the Adobe Camera Raw editor, and then there's RAW format. They're different. Adobe Camera Raw is software. RAW is a format. Adobe Camera Raw can edit RAW format. They're different. But there are several flavors of RAW format. Every proprietary manufacturer of every camera, and then some, have their own RAW format. They don't speak well to each other, if at all. And if a company were to go out of business, their RAW files you may not be able to edit. Now that sounds crazy, but I remember when we thought Kodak would never go bankrupt or out of business, and that happened too. So I'm unpacking some of the problems with regular RAW format. But first, Adobe Camera Raw versus RAW format. ACR is software. Okay? It edits RAW file types. Adobe Camera Raw, look at number 1, is a plugin for Lightroom, Bridge, and Photoshop. You have to have it. Make sure you get the latest update for that. Now, I can find it, Adobe Creative Cloud. I'm in my Adobe Creative Cloud, and typically if I set it, it will automatically show in my menu item. And if I look at that and I click on updates, I'll see what I've recently installed. Oh, look, there's a Camera Raw. That's the Adobe Camera Raw software. It had an update. But if you can't find it, if you haven't done it, and you ought to have, it should be there, look under All Apps, and you'll see, oh, there it is, Camera Raw. Make sure you have it. All right, that's Adobe Camera Raw, but there's some other piece of software that would be quite useful to you, and I've shown you that in this document, Why DNG, and that is there's a software program called the Adobe DNG Converter, and it doesn't show up easily. It doesn't show up free. If you have not automatically converted your images to DNG format on the way in, if you're a Nikon user and you are using and you see on your drive .nef files, they are not converted to DNG. They need to be. That's my point to you. You need not NEF files, you need DNG files. So if you see NEFs, it's too late. They've already been added to your hard drive as NEF files. They haven't been converted. So you're going to need the Adobe DNG Converter. You want to download this free software, and you're going to have to go out of your way a little bit to grab it. Let me show you how to get it. If you're a Canon user and you have .cr2 files, they are not DNG files. They are Canon's RAW files. CR, Canon RAW version 2. Nikon, NEF, Nikon electronic file type or format. ARW, a .arw is a Sony RAW file. You don't want that and 600 possible other RAW formats that are proprietary. I'm going to convince you to convert those all into DNGs for 3 good reasons. All right, but you may need, if you're not doing it on the way in, you may need to download the Adobe DNG converter. Here's where I'm going to tell you to go, and I've shown you that here. You can go to adobe.com downloads. I'm doing that here, and then I'm going to click on the search button, and I'm going to type Adobe DNG converter and choose the appropriate flavor, either for Mac or for PC. And when I do that, I'm in, and I'll download the latest version. What Adobe DNG converter lets you do is point to folders that already exist of your RAW file types and automatically convert them folder by folder into RAW files, DNG RAW files. And then you can, on your own, manually throw away the old NEFs, the old CR2s, the old ARWs. The DNG converter won't throw away the old ones. It saves them as backups. It's up to you to throw away the originals. Otherwise, you're going to fill your hard drive up, right? So it converts them to DNG with the originals intact. I then take those and toss those originals. DNG is all you need. Any edits you've ever performed on those NEF files, CR2 files, ARW files, are saved. They're intact. Now let's talk about why you care. All right, why do I care? I could use Bridge to edit in Camera Raw. I could use Lightroom or Photoshop to edit in Camera Raw. Yeah. Hey, because when you don't use DNG, you get 3 problems. When you edit a NEF, a .NEF, or a CR2, or an ARW, it automatically creates a second file, a second document, a .xmp file that you have to manage and keep track of. And if a magazine said, hey, I want your photo, I want to publish your photo, you'd have to send the NEF and the .xmp, otherwise your edits don't show up. It's evil. One positive reason to use a DNG is it eliminates the 2-file problem. It's just 1 file, as it should be. DNG combines those 2 files into 1. This is the biggest reason I don't use my default NEFs or CR2s or ARWs. I want DNG. Why? Because I don't have a 2-file problem. I have a 1 file. That's not a problem. Spectacular, okay? The second reason that I would use DNG format is because it future-proofs all my RAW files. If Kodak goes out of business, if Nikon goes out of business, if Canon goes out of business, oh my gosh, that would never happen. It's happened. Then DNG can be read by any number of softwares, not just Nikon's own RAW format editor. So it future-proofs my images. It's backup. It future-proofs my images. But the third, and maybe the best for you, benefit is, hey, listen, RAW files are big files. RAW files are big. Why? Because they have a lot more data, a lot more crayons, a lot more colors embedded in those files than JPEGs do. They're big, but they're big for a good reason. But a lot of that size is proprietary to Nikon or proprietary to Canon or Sony or Olympus or Pentax or whatever other company. And if you save as DNG, it throws out the proprietary data, which is not needed. And it results, Adobe says, in a 10 to 25% raw file size reduction. You'll get 10 to 25% of your hard drive space back if you'll convert your images to DNG and then toss the originals. Now, I had one ex-Marine argue with me over this in a photo class. He argued, he made a funny face, and he went home, and over the weekend, he did this to all, he used the Adobe DNG converter to convert all his old Nikon files into DNG files, and he reported back to me on the following Monday with a big spreadsheet that he in fact saved 40% of his entire hard drive space by converting to DNG. He said, I am a believer. Tell all your friends. I just did. 3 reasons to convert to DNG file type. It eliminates the 2-file problem and creates 1. There are no XMP sidecar files. It future-proofs my images. It can talk to any number of apps that can read DNG files. And I get a 10 to 40%, your mileage may vary, hard drive space reduction. I get my files back. And therefore, RAW, DNG in particular, is freedom. It's non-destructive, it's editable, it's shareable, and so on and so forth. But you'll want to save your images in DNG format on the way in. And if it's too late, use the Adobe DNG converter to convert those to DNG format. 1 bonus video to go, and it's a quickie on using Bridge to sort. I'll walk you through the ins and outs of sorting in Bridge, okay? Almost done with week 1.